this lovely plant. Is the plant in the shot? What's going on, you guys? My name is Matt and I am here with the Mercedes-Benz GLA45 AMG. There's a lot that makes this car special, but one in particular holds a spot in my heart, and it is the fact that last week I got to take this exact car out on track at the Mercedes-Benz manufacturing plant. It was actually Barber Motorsports Sports Park, but we got to take this out on track along with the GLA45, and it was a blast. So I thought I'd come back, share some of my experiences with you a little bit more in depth, and talk about this car with you. Now obviously this is a GLA, but it doesn't necessarily look like a normal GLA. It is of course dropped down. This is the AMG variant. It's much more powerful. The suspension is much more composed. The chassis is much better balanced. It's much more performance oriented. And you can tell in the fact that they've dropped the ride height back down the initial 2 inches that they did when they brought it over on the A-Class. The original GLA is built on the A-Class platform, but for the GLA in the American market, they jacked it up 2 inches in the suspension. For the GLA45 AMG, they dropped it back down to give it a nice low ride height that gives it a lower center of gravity that helps it handle better in corners, stay much more composed and rigid. Now, if you missed the fact that this is an AMG, under the hood here is an engine, and it is signed by an AMG engineer. One man, one engine philosophy. It's very classic AMG. It is not a V8, however. It is a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder. But this is the highest output or highest power figures per liter of any engine that's ever been created. This is a banger. Now, of course, being a GLA, it's still technically an SUV. Of course, it's dropped down and makes it more of a hatchback, in my opinion. But you still get the 4MATIC all-wheel drive from Mercedes. It's full-time all-wheel drive. Gives you excellent grip, excellent power being put down onto the tarmac. So you're going to have great launches, great use of your power. None of it is wasted in wheel spin or loss of traction. You do have these wonderful Continental tires around these 20-inch black coated wheels. And if you look closely, you'll see these lovely red AMG brake calipers. Now, as we get to the back, we see more things that remind us of the fact that this is a true AMG product. It is a hand-built engine from the AMG engineers. They are specially trained, and they are a bit more valuable. And they're just better. One thing that you can see in the rear that complements that is the fact that it is, of course, equipped with the classic Mercedes quad rhombus-shaped exhaust. If the exhaust wasn't enough for you, you also have a fantastic rear diffuser to help channel air under this lower ride height of the body. It channels air beautifully underneath the car, and this big wing up here channels air over the car, creating more downforce, especially at higher speeds and in corners. Now, let's not forget that this is a Mercedes-Benz, and as such, it is still classy, elegant, and sophisticated, and you can see it in things like these taillights here. You have this wonderful stardust. It's almost like a crushed crystal glass diamond effect. It's really, really cool. Now, as we get to the trunk, we can see that this is, yeah, in fact, based on the GLA, and it's got plenty of trunk space. You've got seats that fold 60/40, and you have a nice little pass-through in the center here. So your practicality is endless. You've got tether points, you've got additional storage under your trunk floor. I mean, there's the performance of the AMG, there's the looks that could kill. This is the most boy racer thing that you can find in the Mercedes lineup. It's very, very full of character and personality, and it's practical enough for you to put all your stuff. Now, sitting in the back, it's really nice, and it's surprisingly spacious, especially for how small a car this is. However, it's made possible by the fact that this car is equipped with the AMG race buckets. They're very small, they're very thin, and it leaves a lot of legroom for me in the back seat. Of course, I also have dual climate control vents, a 12-volt charger, and ashtray. Beautiful red stitching along the seats, along with red perforations in the leather, and my favorite, red seat belts. Oh, and if all that doesn't float your boat, you also have your own personal sunroof back here. Now, up front in the cockpit here is really where you start to feel the big differences between this car and the base GLA. This is, of course, completely race-spec'd out. You have a wonderful Alcantara wrapped steering wheel, Alcantara along the dash. All of your vents have accented red to remind you that this is fast, this is performance, this is AMG. You have red stitching, you have a red stripe along your steering wheel. It's flat-bottomed, of course, it's AMG, and you have these wonderful aluminum paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Now, going a little bit deeper, we do see that you have a nice carbon fiber effect on your gauge cluster within your tach and your speedo. And moving down, you have a traditional GLA screen here. Your normal vents, like I said, they have red accenting in here. But as you move down, this is very traditional GLA. One thing you'll notice that's different is this adaptive exhaust. And this is probably one of my favorite things, and I'll show you when we get to drive this thing. But moving down even further, we have a wonderful leather wrapped shift knob. This is one of the biggest differences between this and the traditional GLA. Your turn stalk, or your gear selector is no longer up here on the steering column. It's down here where you would normally expect it in a performance vehicle. There's a button here for manual mode, and you have your drive selectors here: individual, comfort, sport, and sport plus. And of course you have a panoramic roof, and I won't go on and bore you about how comfortable and still refined the cabin is. The seats are a bit tighter because it's an AMG. This is the performance sport buckets, so it's going to be a little bit tighter. You have a little bit more support on your lumbar, but that's just to kind of hold you in place and keep you comfortable when you're thrashing it on track. So with that in mind, let's jump behind the wheel, let's get this thing outside, and let's take it for a spin. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are behind the wheel of the GLA45 now, and I'm going to show you why this is the perfect grown-up's toy. So this is a hyper hatch. Like I said, they dropped this thing back down 2 inches in the suspension from the traditional GLA, like I mentioned before, and you can feel it, especially in corners. This thing is so light, it's so nimble, it's incredibly athletic, and it just responds. And then it's got all this power, 375 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. And if you're wondering, yes, this is the most power per liter of any engine ever built. You can keep your Paganis, you can keep your Koenigsegg's, your Lamborghinis, your Ferraris. This thing, per liter, is gonna go toe-to-toe and win. And we all like fast cars, and that's great. Oh, but the reason that I like Mercedes AMG is because they make the best sounding cars. The cracks and pops that you get out of the exhaust on this thing, especially in Sport Plus mode, that's when it defaults to your adaptive exhaust having the baffles open and being in its most loud setting. That's when you get this. It's just all types of backfires and noise and just childish joy. And I know the Jaguar F-Pace makes a pretty good sounding 4-cylinder, but this thing definitely takes the cake. Now this particular car comes with 4 drive modes. You can option to have 5 drive modes with adaptive dampers, but you will get an individual, a comfort, a sport, sport plus, and you can option to have a race mode. And man, is it worth it? Oh, it's so fast. 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, and honestly, it's super fast, but there's power in any gear at any RPM. This thing does exactly what you want it to do with any input you give it. Now, I did have the pleasure of taking this thing out, like I said, on track in Birmingham with Mercedes, and it was a blast. It was the first time I'd ever taken something out on track, and I was so glad to have this thing with me because it just took such good care of me. Oh, jeez. The steering is so precise, the body and the chassis is so composed with this adaptive dampers system, and I mean, I didn't need to shift by myself. I just left it in automatic, and I let the car take over, and it kept me in the rev range. It kept me up high where all the power is. It was just perfect. It was the perfect beginner track day car. It was also really cool because on your infotainment screen, you can get live readouts of your engine horsepower, your torque readout, and your boost pressure. So it was really cool to see, you know, how you go into a corner, everything backs off, and then you get back on the power, and things kind of go crazy, and the dash lights up, which is always really cool. And then, of course, you have the adaptive exhaust. You can turn it on, turn it off if you want to be an adult or a child. I leave mine in child mode all the time because why wouldn't you? But it's so much fun. This is just the best toy. But it's more than just a toy also. I don't want to make it seem like it's just a one-trick pony. This thing's got 4-wheel drive. You still have all the practicality. I mean, I'm 6'1", I can sit behind myself comfortably in here, especially with these sport buckets. And you still have a nice sized trunk. So it will absolutely assimilate into your life and be pretty much everything you want it to be. And it's a 4-cylinder, so you get decent fuel economy. If you really are, you know, driving conservatively, you can get close to 30 mpg highway in this thing in an AMG. A hand-built AMG. There's no other car that does that. Oh, there's no other car that sounds like this either. Time to be a little childish. I love it! Oh my gosh, this thing is perfect. It's so much fun. It's so lively, it's so peppy. chassis is so well balanced, the suspension is so well sorted. Even without the adaptive dampers, it's so good. It does everything that I want it to do. It's so easy to just get in and drive hard. You can drive this thing at 10 tenths and not worry about a thing. I love this car. This is the best, most expensive, but the best go-kart you can ever hope to own. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, patreon.com/downshiftmke, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.